Barcelona, Mika Hakkinen won the pole and the Spanish Grand Prix and the World Championship. He repeated the same in 1999, pole, race, and title. But this year, Hakkinen has been anywhere but in the spotlight. He scored points, but has yet to finish atop the podium. Is Spain his lucky race? Is today the day Mika Hakkinen turns his 2000 season around? Barcelona in round 5 of the FIA Formula One World Championship. Today is the Grand Prix of Spain from the Circuit de Catalunya. Welcome to our Fox Sports Net coverage. I'm Mike Joy alongside 5-time winner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Eric Bell. From F1 Racing Magazine and the London Sunday Times, Peter Windsor will join us from the pit lane for our Mercedes-Benz pre-race. Here's a look at what's coming up for you in this next half hour. David Coulthard walks away from a horrific, spectacular plane crash earlier this week. We'll tour the nerve center of the West McLaren Mercedes team, the pit lane stand. We'll show qualifying highlights that showed rush hour right in the final moments for both the two top teams. And we'll go Formula One-on-one with the new star of F1, 20-year-old Jenson Button. Michael Schumacher returns from one of his reconnaissance laps to get the morning underway. He is the World Championship leader by a wide margin. He cannot give up that lead today. He has 20 points on David Coulthard, 22 on Mika Hakkinen, the defending world champion. Then his teammate Rubens Barrichello, his younger brother Ralph, and Giancarlo Fisichella, the top half dozen. Likewise, in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari, even if McLaren Mercedes were to score maximum points, Ferrari would leave Spain with the lead. Williams BMW third, while Benetton, Jordan, and British American Racing scrap for fourth. The Jordans, which did not have a great day in qualifying yesterday, as reconnaissance laps continue, grid full of well-wishers there and mechanics here at Catalunya. Earlier this week, David Coulthard was en route to Nice when his plane developed engine trouble and the pilots managed to get it down to the runway in Lyon. The front of the plane, though, exploded, and miraculously, Coulthard, his fiancée, American Heidi Walensky, and his trainer, Andy Matthew, walked away from this. Just 2 days after the crash, this Thursday, David Coulthard explained to the media.
I'd like to express our heartfelt sympathy for the families of the two pilots, David Saunders and Dan Worley, who behaved in the utmost professional manner throughout the accident. On impact, the plane's wing tanks ruptured and there was a fire on the right-hand side of the aircraft. When the plane finally came to a rest, the front of the cockpit had broken free from the main fuselage. At this point, we established the only way out was through the front, and Andy led the way through the debris, and as this part was 3 or 4 feet off the ground, I followed to enable Heidi to be able to get down from the aircraft. Once we were all clear of the plane, I returned to the plane to see if there was anything I could do for the pilots, but there was nothing I could do to help. In less than a minute, the emergency services arrived, and I would like to express our thanks to the French emergency services and airport authorities for the professional and swift response.
How do you walk away from that and get back into the race car? Jackie Stewart explains.
One of the great abilities that a racing driver has, or what I would call a professional risk taker has, they can compartmentalize their mind and they can step out of that compartment and go into a fresh challenge without their mind being interrupted by any events or circumstances, whether they be emotional, whether it be grief in some cases, or whether it be euphoria in other cases. And they can focus better than any group of people that I know of in the world. Their crisis management with regards to their mental attitude is, I believe, second to none.
Well, as always, very eloquently explained by Jackie Stewart, but I must point out they did the best thing possible. David and his fiancée actually flew to Barcelona on Thursday. The most important thing, though, is you've got to get back in that car, and David's had a lot of criticism about the fact that how could he possibly race after this tragedy? But the only way he can do anything is to get in that car. His concentration is totally focused on racing that car, and his best job is in that car. That's what he'll do today.
And the pilots of the father of one of the pilots who perished in the crash phoned the McLaren team here in Spain yesterday and encouraged David to race well. Well, there is other news of these past 2 weeks since we were at soggy Silverstone. Let's go to the paddock and join Peter Windsor.
Surprising news since Silverstone is that Mike Gascoigne, the technical director of the Jordan Mugen Honda team, is to work in future for the Renault-owned Benetton outfit. I say in future. In fact, Gascoigne has a further 12 months to run on his Jordan contract, and Eddie Jordan, very calm about the matter, says he's going to enforce those 12 months of working. He's doing that because he says Gascoigne is a great manager of personnel. He's a technical director, of course, but he's great at bringing on new young guys, and that's what Jordan are going to do over the 12 months. And Eddie says that's what Jordan do best as a team, bring along young talent. Jacques Villeneuve has said that he has no back problems at all, contrary to rumour. And at Jaguar, lots of changes. The Chrome Leaper has left the top of the motorhome. And simultaneously, Neil Ressler has announced that he will be based in Europe in future and will be taking more hands-on control of that team. Let's hope the fortunes change for Jaguar. The rumour is they're hoping to woo Ross Brawn from Ferrari, much as they tried to get Mika Hakkinen last year from McLaren. They failed to get Hakkinen, of course, and Ferrari is saying they're unlikely to get Ross Brawn, and Brawn privately is saying that as well. So let's see what happens at Jaguar. They need to change a lot. Shame they lost Ekbal Hamidi last year. That's what they really need, a great aerodynamicist, in my opinion.
David Coulthard coming in after one of his reconnaissance laps. He'll line up in the second row today.
Well, I hope that Mr. Ressler finds it easy to settle into actually running a racing team, because my goodness, it's I think quite a different thing to running a major development program with Ford.
Yes, he was the head of all of Ford engineering worldwide, and for him to move lock, stock and barrel to England to run the F1 team just stresses how important this series is to the fortunes of Jaguar and to Ford Motor Company, which owns Jaguar. We're at the Circuit de Catalunya. We're just outside beautiful Barcelona. A couple of views of the city, including an area where, much like Central Park, 1 horsepower is the rule. We get a lot of your questions on email, and we've had a lot of interest in the HAND system, the head and neck support system that Dr. Robert Hubbard of the University of Michigan designed, and Camel GT driver Jim Downing attempted some 10 years ago to bring to widespread use in the U.S. Kyle Petty tried it in NASCAR, didn't much care for it. It didn't really much catch on. But the device now has been worked on by Daimler Chrysler and the West McLaren Mercedes team engineers, and David Coulthard is tested with it. You see it there in red. The shoulder harnesses strap it, hold it firmly, and cables tether the helmet to this HAND device to prevent whiplash in the event of a bad crash. And testing will continue, and it's been recommended by Dr. Sid Watkins that it be mandatory in F1 next year. Now, we'd appreciate your email comments and questions. Our address is formula1@foxsports.net. We read all your emails. We can't respond to all of them due to the volume received, but we'll try to incorporate ideas of general interest into our upcoming telecasts.
As you see Hakkinen coming up there, you'll notice that, well, you won't notice, but we noticed that they had actually adjusted his front wing during his reconnaissance laps. Which is some little tweaks. He's not been very happy with the car this weekend. In fact, in warm-up this morning, they had a tremendous amount of oversteer.
Hakkinen will start this second. Remember, he won this race the last 2 years, as well as the pole and the World Championship, but he is not on pole today.
Good shot of the camera on top of the airbox there, just for those who wonder what that little aerodynamic device is. That, in fact, every car has a mandatory camera mounting on the top of the airbox.
Well, Formula One drivers have often been compared to astronauts, and you've all seen on the telecasts of NASA space shots, Houston Mission Control. Let's look at Formula One Mission Control with Peter.
But this is where the West McLaren team managed the races of David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen. 12 personnel in total allowed on the pit wall. Typically a team like McLaren would probably have a maximum of 8. A plethora of television monitors, as you can see, 28 in total, and these would cover on the top level everything from the race information channels. There'll be 3 of those. That's the Tag Heuer Siemens information, and then moving towards the center, the digital television feed. Now, if the McLaren team surf this enough, they will find somewhere on that digital feed their 2 cars. That's because the digital feed cover the front of the race, the middle of the race, the back of the race, the pit pit lane, and of course the onboard cameras. So you'll often see Adrian Newey or Ron Dennis reaching up, changing channels. That's so they can pinpoint where their drivers are on the circuit. Below that, fantastic plasma flat screen monitors. That is basically for looking at the telemetry from the car. The car sends it back in real time to an antenna on a truck at the back of the garage, and that information is then sent here to the pit wall where it's disseminated. Key information is shown here. If there's a problem, you'll see an Adrian Newey or a Dave Ryan, the chief mechanic, going back to the back of the garage to verify that problem. Finally, tremendously sophisticated communication system. Doesn't always work, has to be said. VIP intercom speaks for itself. There's a Michael Douglas or a Sly Stallone up here. He can talk through that. Base call back of the garage. Intercom, that's so that communication on the pit wall here, just between themselves. Mechanic radio, car radio. Mercedes call. There's another pit stand a little bit further down the road. That's for Mercedes Ilmor, so they can talk direct to that. Volume balance. And guess what? McLaren, as sophisticated as this is, McLaren think this is out of date, and next year they're going to have an all-new pit stand.
Well, it makes you wonder just about how technology's gone crazy. They still actually hang a lap board over the pit wall to tell the drivers what position and how pluses and minuses are, in spite of all that high-tech equipment they have behind them. It's weird, isn't it?
Well, they do know how to spend the money, Derek. My computer monitor is not in a carbon fiber case.
It will be next year.
Maybe, who knows. Michael Schumacher, after his reconnaissance laps, he's now out of his pole-sitting Ferrari, and you see just virtually the whole car covered up now as Brother Ralph has been jumping back and forth between the car he qualified and the spare car. He's done recon laps in each. So there's Ralph, and recon laps just about to finish up as there's Michael. Well, say you're the wife of the Formula One World Championship and you want to see what life is like at the office. Recently, Mika took Aria for a ride in the McLaren F1 two-seater.
Yeah, well, they complained about the conditions at Silverstone 2 weeks ago. My goodness me, they wouldn't have had a Grand Prix in Finland, would they?
Nobody's got a snowmobile in Finland? Come on. Ben's pre-race for the countdown to the Spanish Grand Prix. Grand Prix of Europe comes up next in 2 weeks' time on Fox Sports Net. Most of you will see it at 10 a.m. your local time. Johnny Herbert's the defending champ. In Chicago and Wisconsin, you'll see it earlier, and in Florida, you'll see it later. We'll have the exact times later in our telecast. Most of you will get it 10 a.m. your local time in 2 weeks.
Remember that horse from the Nürburgring?
Yes.
The famous Nürburgring on the new circuit.
Well, the Circuit of Catalunya is one in which most all the Formula One teams test. Most all of them were out here, Derek, just 2 weeks ago, or rather during the 2 weeks since Silverstone.
Well, you can see there's a mile-long straight there past the checkered flag start-finish. Elf is probably the best place to overtake it. Even that is very difficult. Like Cakes is another place. So let's go and do our lap with Rubens Barrichello. It's a circuit that's not used very much. It's used all the time, really, by testing. Every team comes in because of the weather. Here they are going down the straight, 195 miles an hour. One of the most advanced circuits on the map. It, in fact, has virtually every corner you could wish for. Every type of corner, so you can really get the car set up well here. But they all test here. Here's Rubens now works his way up towards Repsol. Slows it right down. It's quite bumpy. It's one of those circuits, although it's very smooth, they cannot get it absolutely flat. Accelerating up into 160 miles an hour, downshifting down to second gear, 85 miles an hour, accelerating out, having job to get traction as he comes out of there. It's quite difficult to get traction on this circuit, despite the fact it's a very rough surface or abrasive surface. Very fast corner, Kampser. Obviously, when you get the car really set up well, that is where you can really pick some time up through there. Comes down into Lacaixo, which is the second slowest corner on the circuit, 60 miles an hour, second gear. He, in fact, is going very slow because in front of him you'll see another car who obviously is on a reasonable lap, and obviously Rubens doesn't want to catch him up as he starts his flying laps. Unfortunately, we're not seeing him at full tilt right now. He's working his way into the last two corners called the New Holland. These corners they take just about flat. Here he is about to start his lap now. Now he's really on it, going to corner 13. That was a lap with Rubens Barrichello.
Ralf Schumacher has been out on several reconnaissance laps in both his car and the spare. Engine change in Ralph's car this morning. And perhaps there's something there that he just doesn't care for. But the grid here in Barcelona, not only is it just jam-packed with people, it makes it very difficult for these drivers completing their recon laps. Now here's Schumacher coming in. This is taped just moments ago. And look at the throng of people that he's trying to fight his way through. Derek, that can't be doing that car, and particularly its clutch, much good.
It just can't be. Absolutely terrible. Look at him. He's nodding his head. He just can't understand just how bad it is.
Well, let's have a look at highlights of yesterday's qualifying.
Well, here at this beautiful circuit, very windy it was yesterday at Catalunya, this department around Barcelona. John Alesi, he was the first man on the track. He's been going well all weekend. In fact, only qualified 18th because he dropped so far back latter part of the session because the track got cooler then. Heinz Halfrensen did very little practice during the weekend. Thought he'd do better than 8th. Wasn't terribly happy with that. The car nonetheless going well. Ralf Schumacher, we saw just now, well, he did extremely well all weekend. He's been up there. That BMW engine, my goodness, have they brought that on so strong. Pedro de la Rosa, first time he's qualified in the top 10. Local man from Barcelona, but unfortunately has to start last today through a fuel infringement. Nick Heidfeld, well, he only seems to get in the press when there's something going wrong for himself. Poor Nick, Formula 3000 champion last year, not having the greatest of seasons. Johnny Herbert, neither is he having a good season. His camera on the front left wing fell off the car. He had to go in the pits. Michael Schumacher, meanwhile, he's been absolutely on song all weekend. The car going extremely well. He gets pole position. Very happy man. David Coulthard not so happy. He has to come in early with the fuel pickup problems, and then when he goes out to qualify, of course, he has much too much fuel in the tanks. Right at the end, though, it's quite chaotic as both the Ferraris go out, and then the two McLarens trying to beat Schumacher's time, but they couldn't do it. Mika Hakkinen tried desperately hard, but actually it was Michael Schumacher. Let's go and hear what Michael has to say at the press conference.
It is obviously satisfying, but honestly, if you look back, since the beginning of the season, we always had the opportunity, but we didn't use our opportunity. As you see, things are so close. It's just, if you just get it perfectly right, you can do it. If you just do a little mistake, or if you have some flex and you cannot do your laps, then obviously you don't do it. But, you know, pole position is nice, but on the other side, the race counts.
Let's go down and talk to Jarno Trulli, who's talking with Peter Windsor.
Jarno, 7th on the grid for Jordan. You must be pleased, but how difficult a lap is it in these conditions?
Well, it's quite difficult, especially because the wind condition. I told too many people before qualifying that it would have been very difficult to drive in this condition, and the gap between one car and another car is very close, as we can see from qualifying. I must say the car was quite good, especially in the beginning, but then when the wind was going on, then it was very hard for us.
Well, Barcelona, as ever, living up to its reputation as a difficult circuit, changing conditions, but Jordan looking very good. Back to you.
Well, Derek, how about a few keys for today's race?
Well, it's a very hard circuit. As I said, a lot of grip on the circuit. So, and these long corners, it really is an endurance test for the drivers. And naturally, because of that, abrasive surface, it's a matter of conserving the tyres. Good shot there of Bernie Ecclestone with some of the hierarchy from the Barcelona region viewing the race this weekend.
Escorting the King of Spain, who shook hands with Michael Schumacher and has been greeting some of the drivers there on the grid. Jacques Villeneuve, great qualifying run. He's set to go, and boy, the BAR has really turned their team around this season. He'll line up 6th. A little bit of back problems. Say that the physio's been working with him. Not going to bother him. He is set to go. When we come back, we'll go Formula One-on-one with the sport's newest star. Here, a bit playful with his dad. Let's have a look at the upcoming schedule on Fox Sports Net. In 2 weeks' time, the Grand Prix of Europe, then Monaco at 10 a.m. your local time. We'll be live at the Grand Prix of Canada, 1:30 Eastern. That's 10:30 Pacific, of course. And France, 10 a.m. your local time once again. On through July with Austria and Germany. Hungary and Belgium in August. Most of you will see these events at 10 a.m. local. And Italy. And the Grand Prix of the United States, 2 p.m. Eastern time and 11 a.m. Pacific. Japan and Malaysia to close out our season. Our third here on Fox Sports Net.
There's a little bit of work going on there with the Ferrari.
Yep, Michael Schumacher now settling back in to his office for the next 2 hours. And of course, in September, they'll be headed for Indianapolis. Thought today in our countdown to Indy, we'd show you an update on the progress of the Formula One course, grandstands and support facilities for USGP 2000 this September at Indianapolis. Of course, the month of May is a busy one at Indy, culminating in the 500. There's the view from the end of the Formula One front straightaway at Turn 1, the new garages, the new infield Pagoda Tower. is nearing completion. That will be in use at the 500 this year for the first time. And the tickets, if you want to come for 3 days to the USGP and sit across from the pits, a lot of European fans are coming, and here's why. It's a tremendous bargain compared to the Euro Grand Prix. $175 will get you a seat right across from the pits. But you better hurry because those seats are going. Nearly 200,000 seats have been sold. There are still tickets available. And for more information, you can call toll-free or you can email the Indianapolis Motor Speedway tickets at brickyard.com or call the number on your screen for ticket information. Jenson Button is the new sensation of Formula One, fifth last week in his home Grand Prix in Great Britain, rather 2 weeks ago. And Peter goes one-on-one with this sport's newest star.
As a 20-year-old rookie, he's the new superstar of Formula One. But I surprised Jenson by asking him about Keith Sutton, who got him a pass to watch the Spanish Grand Prix 2 years ago. Jenson saw the race from the roof of Frank Williams' motorhome.
How did you find out about that anyway?
Well, I saw it. I was there. I remember seeing you on the motorhome.
No, it seems so long ago now. Being part of the scene, and especially being the Williams motorhome was the weirdest thing.
How does it feel to be the young guy in Formula One? I mean, have you met all the other drivers by now?
Yeah, I have, because we do the briefings obviously and the parades around the circuit. So I've met all of them, and they all seem pretty cool, and we get on quite well.
Are you aware of Button Mania, as they're starting to talk about it? Are you aware of being perhaps another person when you're out of the race car?
Button Mania. It's great, isn't it? Not really. The last week's been quite strange because it's the first ever time I've been noticed anywhere. And I went into a few bars in Cambridge and in London and restaurants, and people actually noticed me, which is quite strange feeling. It's quite good though, especially when they're ladies.
How do you feel, or how did you feel in Melbourne on the grid, starting your first Grand Prix?
Excited and very, very nervous. A lot of people say that I don't seem to be nervous, but I definitely am. I think I just hide it very well. It was an amazing feeling, especially being sat, I was at the back of the grid, I know, but being on the grid with Michael Schumacher and Häkkinen and all the drivers I've watched for so many years in Formula One.
Did you have heroes as drivers?
I think Senna probably was in the early 90s. Just how relaxed he seemed to be all the time, and obviously very focused on his job. And I think also Michael in the last few years, the late 90s.
And how quickly have you been able to build up a relationship with Frank and Patrick and with Ralph in terms of feeling relaxed at what you're doing in Formula One?
It's been good. Even in January, I was like I knew them quite well after the tests I have here at Barcelona. We got on really well, and Frank's a great bloke to work with. I don't know, especially after Silverstone, we definitely got on well.
But Damon Hill once said that one of the great things about becoming a celebrity, if that's the right word, is being able to meet other celebrities. Have you sort of found that yet?
A few celebrities. I met a few at a launch in London the other day. I think Neve Campbell was there, and a few others. But there's one that I've always wanted to meet, and that's Britney Spears. I think it's probably because she's quite young as well, and she started off very young like me. No, it'd just be really good to meet her. And
well, perhaps we should get her to the US Grand Prix.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, that'd be good. I don't know how far it is for her to travel, but no, it'd be good.
Jenson, thanks very much and good luck.
Thank you.
He's young, he's quick, he's confident, and he's been accepted the full length of the Formula One pit lane. He's Jenson Button, and he's a new Formula One phenomenon.
A look at Marc Gené, who has closed the gap. You know, last year the Minardis were 3.5, 4 seconds off of the front row cars, and here Marc Gené has cut that gap to 2.5 seconds for Minardi. So showing a lot of progress. He's in his home Grand Prix today. We will be back with the starting grid and the Spanish Grand Prix for you on Fox Sports Net right after these words. Welcome back to Catalonia, just outside Barcelona, where the cars are formed up. The formation lap is next, and then the start of the Spanish Grand Prix. Today it is 76 degrees, extremely humid, Track temperature 88, and the chance of rain is only 20%, and not much of the wind that usually whistles across this circuit. We're riding there on board David Coulthard, who will start fourth. Marc Gené, who, like Pedro de la Rosa in his home Grand Prix.
Remember, this is just an exploratory lap. This is not the start.
Right. So let's have a look at our Mercedes-Benz starting grid. Michael Schumacher, his first pole since Japan last year and 24th of his career.
And Mika Hakkinen must be wondering when he's going to get back on pole.
Row 2 looks like row 1, a Ferrari and a McLaren. It's Barrichello to line up third.
And David Coulthard, as we said earlier, had these fuel pickup problems.
Back in row 3, Ralf Schumacher very pleased with the progress of the Williams BMW.
And Jacques Villeneuve very, very happy. The new setup they discovered in last week's testing has come out trumps.
Jarno Trulli was hoping for more as the Jordans have row 4.
Yeah, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, he was not happy with his position, but then, you know, it's a long race, he said.
Now, Pedro de la Rosa qualified 9th, but will not start there. More in a moment. Eddie Irvine made a mistake on his last run. That cost him. He'll be 9th.
Jenson Button, well, he said, I'm not unhappy. He's faster than he practiced.
Jos Verstappen in his arrows was disappointed with the qualifying setup. He'll be 11th.
And Mika Salo was reasonably happy, but said he lost time in the first sector.
Not a good day for Benetton. There's Fisichella. He'll be 13th.
And Johnny Herbert, well, poor old Johnny, he also had problems in the last sector. Seems to be having them everywhere at the moment.
For Sauber, Peter Deniz had trouble in the traffic. He'll be 13th. Ricardo Zonta, he's just 1 second behind Villeneuve, but that's 11 spots on this grid. Sean O'Lacey for Prost. Prost continues to struggle. And Alexander Wirtz, is his ride with Benetton in jeopardy? He is lining up 18th. Nick Heidfeld in the other Prost, also no good luck this weekend, while Marc Gené last year qualified 3.5 seconds behind the pole. This year he has cut that gap by a second, so good run for Gené. Gaston Mazzacani has the new titanium cast gearbox, new for Minardi and new to Formula One. And Pedro de la Rosa qualified 9th, but the fuel sample taken after qualifying from his car did not match the fuel sample provided at the beginning of the weekend. Arrows first protested, then reviewed their own data, and Tom Walkinshaw, the team owner, says that something happened to contaminate the fuel, that batch of fuel, during its transport, and they accept the penalty, and de la Rosa will start last.
Out of interest, Michael Schumacher, Jos Verstappen and Pedro de la Rosa, the only 3 cars to be running on the medium compound Bridgestone tyre. Everybody else is on the soft.
Derek, is that really significant that Michael on mediums would out-qualify Mika Hakkinen on the soft tire?
Well, you know, it so much depends on the temperature of the track. Yesterday it was actually warmer than today. And, of course, that makes a difference. If the temperature was just right for Michael's tyres yesterday, it might not be right for him today, but he can't change them, as you know. Once you're committed to qualifying, that's it. First corner will be interesting, of course. Schumacher was beside Hakkinen last week, or very close to him, came right alongside him on the start at Silverstone. Let's see what happens here.
All right, here we go with the start of the Spanish Grand Prix. Again, may get a start. Nope, hits the brakes before turn 1 to allow Barrichello in.
What a great start there by Ralf Schumacher. Great start by, but look at Rubens Barrichello. He fell back.
Yes, in fact, he had Villeneuve equal with him most of the way down that straightaway. But the man of the moment, Ralf Schumacher. So Ralf jumped from 5th to 3rd, and one of the...
Deniz is already in the sand.
Pedro Deniz will not complete the first lap.
Or the last.
Or any of them.
Poor. They've not had a good weekend of Sauber. It doesn't seem to work here for them. I think we're going to see today something interesting about just how close these cars are, because they do all their development work at Barcelona because of the climate. Schumacher is certainly streaking away. The medium tyres are working. You saw him on the warming up lap, swerving the car from side to side. That wasn't trying to get the fuel to the pickup point. That was to try and get those tyres warm. 1.1 seconds on the first lap. That is a lot of time. David Coulthard, of course, there in 4th place, behind Ralf Schumacher. And Jacques Villeneuve doing a splendid job in 6th place. They have got their slightly up-rated engine this weekend, so they're hoping for another engine yet to come, but they're very, very happy with the revised Honda RA000E, hoping for greater things later on.
I'm very impressed, Derek, 4 races into this season with what BMW has managed to accomplish in a very quick return to Formula One. Here, BAR, you know, went a whole year with a new chassis without scoring a single point, and here's Williams BMW. Williams, of course, a proven commodity, didn't have a great year last year, but BMW is showing that as quickly as they've jumped back into this sport, it's as if they never left.
He's absolutely outstanding. Remember, the team is actually BMW. Oh, there's another guy off.
One of the Prosts.
That's one of the Prosts off. That's Alesi. Oh, Jean Alesi. What an awful day for him, too. He was pretty well down. He qualified 18th.
One of the arrows.
De La Rosa's off. Now, remember, De La Rosa was working his way up from the back of the grid. You would have thought he could have kept going. He must have stalled it because it looks like his car's well clear of the gravel. He actually hit the bank very hard on Friday, did De La Rosa. That is John Alesi running back to the edge of the track, not having a good season at all with Sauber. One wonders just how long he will continue in motor racing in Formula One.
So here's a replay of the start. Watch for Ralf Schumacher. Here he's inside there, Barrichello. And watch at the top left of your screen. Look at the launch that Ralf Schumacher gets. Splits the McLaren and the Ferrari and jumps straight up for 3rd.
Outstanding start. Absolutely outstanding start. Remember that, of course, they do have this, they've got these new regulations about the electronics and whether they can run these traction control systems to get them better starts. Here's a good slow motion shot of it all.
Now, Villeneuve almost got 5th. However, he was coming into turn 1 on the dirty side of the track and had to brake earlier than Barrichello.
Yeah, that Jordan was very sideways there. He was off on the dirty bit on the outside. He was very happy to get that back, I'm sure.
Yep, that was Frentzen. So before we've completed a lap, 3 cars are out. Denitz and Alesi and De La Rosa. Well, it'll be a short walk home for Pedro de la Rosa, who lives here in his hometown of Barcelona.
Well, of course, he did start from the back of the grid, as we said. He did qualify, in my book, officially 9th, and theirs not, but he was up in 9th position. He was obviously working his way through the field and came to grief.
Well, he may have collided with Alesi. I'm speculating because they both went off at the same time, Derek. Hopefully we'll have a replay, and here it is.
Oh, look. Oh, he's locking it all up. Looks like he had something. Oh, the wing on the front.
Yep. He had run into Alesi, we're told, and that's what cost him the left front wing. And then the car ends up sliding off the circuit.
Yeah, well, of course, he couldn't turn into the corner. I don't think he realized he'd damaged the wing to that degree. So as he comes up, he would lose the downforce under braking, lock the wheel up. And, of course, when he went to turn, wouldn't turn. And that's why he went off. It was a great pity because he could have slipped back in the pits, changed the nose, and carried on.
Observers at the scene are saying that De La Rosa drove into Alesi, and that cost him the front wing and cost him his race.
Yes, you've got to drive with a little bit more intelligence on the first few laps because everybody's trying out their brakes. They're running different loads of fuel, as we well know, not always full tanks, on different strategies.
Look at the lead that Schumacher has opened up already. I hope this isn't going to be one of these textbook driving lessons.
Well, unfortunately, it seems to come at this circuit just because everybody knows so much about it that if you just have that little technical edge that Ferrari seems to have had this weekend, all weekend Schumacher has been quickest. Every run they've had, every single session has been quickest. Whereas at Silverstone 2 weeks ago, he wasn't quickest, and he never did. He featured in the race that much. But the car is working here, that is for sure. Ralf holding off, Ralf Schumacher there holding off David Coulthard quite convincingly. Here's another shot. This looks like the incident here as Pedro de la Rosa.
Yeah, De La Rosa came into the corner on the inside lane, offline.
And he was on the dirt, you see, Mike. And then ran in the back of Alesi, who was slowing himself down probably at a greater rate than De La Rosa was.
So as Alesi turned in, there was a car there instead of...
Bad judgment.
Yes, instead of free racetrack. So 3 cars are out. De La Rosa and Alesi have crashed. Pedro Denitz has spun. And we'll be back with the Spanish Grand Prix on Fox Sports Net. after this. Third and fourth behind the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher and the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. Then it's Rubens Barrichello, who started third but did not get quickly off the grid and runs in fifth in his Ferrari. Jacques Villeneuve's BAR, the Jordans of Frentzen and Trulli, the Williams of Jenson Button, then Mika Salo and Ricardo Zonta. Let's ride with Barrichello a bit here.
Let's see if he takes these two flat. No, not quite.
Now this straightaway is longer than the front stretch at Indianapolis.
About the same, I'd say.
You see that he is fifth and not quite, just losing sight of this third and fourth place battle. Ralf Schumacher got a great start. Nipped David Coulthard in the run to turn one. And there's Coulthard pretty much holding station there in fourth place as a result.
That was a stirring start by Ralf on the BMW.
And it looked for a while there down the front straightaway as if Jacques Villeneuve would improve his position on the start for the third race in a row. Such was not to be as he went to the inside on Barrichello. The dirty line going into turn number one, braked early, realizing that you probably can't win this race in the first lap, but you sure can lose it on the run to the first corner. And Villeneuve runs right where he qualified in sixth place. The pole qualifying lap for today's race, 1 second, a full second faster than this same race last year. As Derek pointed out, all the teams do test here, so they've maximized their performance potential on this circuit. But it shows all of the developments in engine and chassis that have taken place in 1 year's time. And at the back of the grid, that's a second closer to the front of the grid than it was. So
The strange thing is Minardi don't do much testing here because they don't have a budget to go testing. You see the black marks there come in that corner? That is this ripple effect that they have at this circuit. That's where the car keeps bouncing on the brakes and just braking and gripping and braking and then gripping. And it's quite interesting. It's a lot of corners like that here at Barcelona. High G-force. Nearly 3 G as they're pulling around some of these long right-hand turns. Very hard on the driver's physique. But because they test here a lot, they see, oops, Ralf got himself a little bit out of shake under braking there.
It's
the Williams crew.
One of those fellas looks a little out of shape. But they've had a long weekend. Don't envy the job of a Formula One mechanic. A lot of all-nighters, a lot of long hours, and all for 2 hours of glory on Sunday afternoon.
And then load it all up, pack it up, put it in the truck, and let's all go home again. They sleep all the way home. Meanwhile, the other truck is on the other race. Practice truck is on the way to the next racetrack for testing there. So although they had a wonderful party, Coulthard had a wonderful party after winning Silverstone 2 weeks ago. All the drivers went. They really got legless at that weekend's party, I'm led to believe. And then, of course, they have to go testing 2 days later. They were down here testing.
You mean instead of win on Sunday, sell on Monday, it was win on Sunday, recover on Monday?
Absolutely.
Yes.
These guys have to let their hair down sometimes. The pressure is so great.
Now, much like at Silverstone, behind sixth place Jacques Villeneuve, there's a group of cars in very close contact. Frentzen and Trulli, the two Jordans, Jenson Button, not that far back, Mika Salo, Ricardo Zonta, Jos Verstappen, Eddie Irvine, Wirtz and Herbert, and Fisichella, even Marc Genet, all in a pretty tight bundle.
It'd be nice to see Genet get a good result here. He didn't have a good time last year, but then it was his first appearance.
And he has really matured as a driver. And the Minardi just got the most recent version of the fundamental badged Ford V10, and they've been told that that is the last development version for this season. So the power output they have today is what they'll have the rest of the season. But Minardi's found an American company to build them a cast titanium gearbox casing, the first one in Formula One. And it's quite unusual for Minardi to have an innovation that hasn't already made its way up and down the pit lane, but such was the case, and the Minardi people very thankful because they said they couldn't have afforded to develop that on their own. It's in Mazzacani's car today, not in Marc Gené's as they continue its development, but they think it holds great promise over the fabricated gearbox casings now in use.
Well, let's hope so. The only thing is that with all the budget monies that these teams have, it makes you wonder whether it is the right way to go, because everybody else by now would have tried everything they possibly can.
Yes. Telefonica was rumored to be buying the Minardi team. Damon Hill was rumored to be taking over and running the Minardi team. Lots of rumors, but it's kind of like standing on the used car lot. You know, talk is cheap. Show me the money, and so, thus far nobody has. And the last word, or latest word, that's Jim Rome's show, the last word. The latest word is that Telefonica has somewhat backed off from the discussions of perhaps buying the team. 3.4 seconds, Schumacher to Hakkinen now.
And then a long way, another bunch of seconds down to Ralf Schumacher. A long way. And Rubens Barrichello is losing touch with Coulthard and Schumacher, with Ralf Schumacher. Yeah, David Coulthard was seen to be icing his ribs this morning, but assured everybody that that he would be fine in the race. And I have to admit that once you're in the car and you're held in tightly, even if you have got some pain, aches and pains, once everything gets warmed up in those situations, it doesn't seem quite so bad. And the shack isn't that bumpy, so it shouldn't be that bad for him. But of course, it just depends just which part of the ribs it is that's bothering him.
Coulthard's Formula One career started here, 1994. He qualified 9th, did not finish. In fact, it took him 4 starts here before he got his first finish. A 6th place in 97. He's finished 2nd behind his teammate Hakkinen each of the last 2 years. Another look at the start, this time from Barrichello, and whoosh, there goes Ralf.
Yeah, Ralf really went through, didn't he?
You don't see Villeneuve down to the inside. You see Barrichello have to move to the left to give him a little room.
It's a long way down to that first turn, isn't it? A lot can happen in that bit of road.
And it cost Rubens 2 spots. Hey, we're on TV, the Ferrari mechanic says to his mate. So their driver, Michael Schumacher, has a handy lead over Mika Hakkinen, Ralf Schumacher, David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello, and Jacques Villeneuve. You're watching Formula One on Fox Sports Net. 2.6 second lead over Mika Hakkinen, and this battle continues to rage for 3rd between Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard. Nightly at 10 and 12, the all-new National Sports Report gives you the complete wrap-up of the day in sports from a fresh perspective with internet interaction, news, highlights, opinions, and analysis. National Sports Report takes you beyond the box score nightly at 10 and 12 and only on Fox Sports Net. There's your lead differential, and there is the gap back to the 3rd place battle.
Sure, actually, Mika's picked up about a second and 3/4 on Michael. Talking about pit strategies, we haven't really talked about. They should be in on lap 23 and 43 on 2-stop strategy. And I believe the majority would be on 2-stop strategy because of the abrasiveness of the circuit and the fact that most of them are running the softer tyre. But as I said, the problem is with the variation in temperature, the temperature's already gone up 5 degrees since the beginning of the race. Ooh, Ralf locking up the inside front tyre there. Don't want to do too much of that.
Look at the comparison of the Ferrari drivers. Michael Schumacher lapping a few tenths to as many as 8/10 of a second faster than his teammate Barrichello. All we can do is speculate on the reasons why. Perhaps Michael started with a light fuel load. You know, this will play out, of course, as the race goes on.
Well, if you're going to start with a light load, he should be pulling away a little bit more from...
you would think.
Look at this Ralf locking up that inside front left, sort of say right tyre again, which makes him get a bit out of a shape as he turns into the left-hander following.
We've had a lot of emails these past few weeks talking about pit stop and fuel strategy, and a number of writers have said that a driver running longer on one stint doesn't change the amount of fuel necessary to run the race and doesn't really mean a shorter pit stop because you still need to add so much fuel. And I think what those fellows are neglecting to take into account is we don't know how much fuel is in each car at the start of the race. Yes, we know how much you'll consume during the race, but not how much you start with.
And they also have different size fuel tanks.
Yes.
These teams do. So, and we don't know what they are. We know Jags used to have a smaller tank than anybody else.
So there is still quite a variable as far as when the drivers stop for fuel, and as far as running that middle segment and stretching that out to shorten up that last pit stop. The one variable we don't know is how much fuel they start with on board, although we can pretty well determine how much they add at each stop by the length of the pit stop. In any case, it's only guesswork.
It's only guesswork. Rubens Barrichello is not that close to these two, but we'll see what happens when he gets towards the 23 lap position here, whether Rubens starts to get closer to these two so that maybe he can benefit from a better pit stop than either Ralf Schumacher or David Coulthard. That's when we'll see just Ferrari's bit of strategy coming in there. Also seeing everybody's strategy coming in towards those pit stops if everybody starts to bunch up in this leading group.
Ralf Schumacher, 5th here last year and in the points, and he's finished in the points in 3 of the 4 races this season. Now, remember, Ralf Schumacher jumped back and forth between his primary car and the spare, and they were still tinkering with the setup on his car right up until race time.
And they just actually hung a board out, Mike, say pump. I'm sure it doesn't mean pump the brakes. It's obviously something to do with a fuel pickup pump, I would have thought, that he has to maybe flick over at a certain point in the race.
There's Jenson Button behind the 2 Jordans.
Yeah, he is actually way down. I mean, he's in 9th place. Again, not easy to overtake. There's nothing you can really do about it when you're in this on this circuit. It is the most difficult track to overtake on. Remember that they brake so fiercely in these braking areas that there is so little room to do any overtaking, and you just can't get alongside anybody. You've got the turbulence to contend with, and the fact you lose, of course, front-end grip. So although you get close to the guy in front, you can't follow him through the fast turns.
Now, Button has picked up 1 position since the start. He started 10th. He's running 9th, and that was at the expense of Eddie Irvine, who started just in front of Button, but Irvine is backslid to 13th position.
Yes, he's got Alexander Wurz very closely behind him. Wurz, of course, on a bit of a knife edge at the moment. We're talking about the different drivers replacing him. There's talk about him replaced by a young Formula 3 driver who may well come out of Formula 3, and Antonio Pizzonia. He may well be signed up by Benetton. Of course, inevitably they deny it totally, but the fact is they haven't ruled out they might test him next week. So what do you go?
Right.
Also, the Benetton has new front suspension this weekend and a slightly improved cooling system on it. Neither of those seem to be helping Alexander Wurz very much.
No, Wurz presently in 14th, as you mentioned, just behind Irvine. But that's a whole pack of cars. Verstappen, Irvine, Wurz, Johnny Herbert, Fisichella are all pretty much nose to tail further back in the pack.
There is Alexander Wurz coming in, that very distinctive helmet of his.
So at lap 18, the first of pit stops.
Several of them coming in there.
But they were all running in a really pretty tight pack. So this would be Heidfeld.
Well, of course, when you're running in a tight pack like that, you're getting this understeer, this push problems that you're getting, and you're going to be destroying those front tires very much in the fast turns. So you start to lose a lot of grip, and you say, well, I'd rather go in now and maybe go out and get some clean air.
Marc Gené was also in.
This is he, isn't it?
That's Mazzacani.
Getting a lot of opposite lock on Mazzacani going through the turns there.
And Schumacher beginning to lap cars. And there's more pit activity. So Michael Schumacher, who was fastest in last week's test, all the teams, I believe, except Minardi participated. And here's Button in, Jenson Button.
Ralf Schumacher was second quickest last week.
Mika Hakkinen closing in. He has cut the gap down to 1.9 seconds on Schumacher. Good quick stop for Jenson Button, 7-7.
It's a very good stop by Williams.
So there's Mika Hakkinen is pouring it on. He's within 2 seconds of Michael Schumacher now. The lap car of Heidfeld just behind. There's the gap, first to second. And Hakkinen has knocked another 15 hundredths off of Schumacher's lead that time.
And they both had to overtake traffic, so he made a better deal of it than Michael Schumacher did.
Williams, having brought in Jenson Button at lap 19, are now setting up for Ralf Schumacher.
I wonder if Ferrari doing something, trying to do something very cool here, and Schumacher running further than he did before, because they've been so dominant through the week of testing. Makes you wonder whether they haven't planned something a bit different. Maybe one can't fail but think, well, maybe they will only do one stop. I can't imagine it for one moment, but strange things happen at Ferrari these days. Johnny Herbert going in for refueling. Johnny was lying in 14th place, right behind Eddie Irvine. Fuel filler off, and he's cursing and swearing, but it wasn't that slow. Keep that thing under the speed limit as you go down there, Johnny. Johnny, of course, was second here in 1995 when he raced with Benetton. Of course, had a couple of Formula One Grand Prix victories during that period. But didn't go out in front of Michael Schumacher, though.
Herbert scored twice in the points here. He had a 5th place in 97, but this is a very difficult year for Jaguar and for Johnny Herbert in particular.
The problem with Jaguar, I think it's since Jackie Stewart has been sort of taken over, the team bought out, it's put so much pressure on Ford, and suddenly they find themselves, it seems like, with a hell of a lot of Chiefs and not too many good Indians. And I'm a bit worried about the whole setup there. There's been a lot of criticism about it. Neil Ressler, of course, we've already discussed. But, you know, a man that I don't believe is necessarily that knowledgeable about literally running a team. I know he's very involved with racing. I know that that Bobby Rahal is a great friend of the Ford company. There's even talk of Rahal possibly coming to run the Jaguar team. Now, that to me would have been a bit strange, although he's an IndyCar man, but he is a very knowledgeable team runner. Yes. Oh, a lot of dirt there as somebody obviously gets it very wide.
I think that might have been Fisichella just ahead of Michael. We'll be back for pit stops. Michael Schumacher on Ferrari leading the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. You're watching Formula One, the Spanish Grand Prix on Fox Sports Net. Back to our coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. There are the leaders virtually nose to tail as Schumacher has had a little bit of difficulty working the race traffic and now has the second place car directly behind. There's activity at Jordan.
And Ferrari, by the look of it.
And Jacques Villeneuve was in at lap 22 and surrendered 6th place with his first stop. Jarno Trulli trying to get restarted. They've got the starter plugged into the back of his Jordan, trying to get him running.
Certainly turning the wheels.
Might have been locked, could have been locked in gear, Derek, and that just be the starter motor turning it all over.
I think it was. No, as I say, I think it was.
Mazzacani is in.
Still, Schumacher isn't making much headway on the Jag in front of him. The way he's dropped right back, he dropped 2 seconds basically in a whole lap. The clutches of Mika Hakkinen, who's driving a superb race. Ralf Schumacher, 3rd place, pops in the pits for a refuel and tyres. Remember, these are the guys that are on 2 stop drive. The Jag pulls over, let the leaders through. The Ralf having a replenishment. 7-7 was a button stop. This one's a 7-8. Very, very close. Great teamwork by the Williams BMW team. Then on the rev limiter, the light goes out, shutters up the fuel cap, and off he goes.
So by the timing of those stops and the length of those stops, you would guess that Williams is on a 3-stop strategy for both cars. With a short, with a 7-second, would they have taken on a full load? Of course, again, we don't know how much fuel they started with. So
I'd rather not
we can
get
only
into all
guess.
that.
Right.
It looks like they're on a 2-stop strategy.
Okay.
As far as stopping at that point, lap 22, 23, and then again at 43, should be 2 stops.
And Jacques Villeneuve has retired. Engine problems.
Ferrari in the pits. Schumacher comes in for his refueling. Let's just see how quick this is. This is where Schumacher really works hard at getting in those pits on the limiter, down to his stops, whoops, out for Jack there. But absolutely vital. Oh, Christmas, he nearly took the man out with the fuel on the back. What a good stop, though.
Might have
Just like another McLaren behind him. I don't know if that was David Coulthard coming in behind. Yes, I think it might have been. The longest stop. Oh, David, you got to get that gear. Obviously, not many of us at home have ever used one of these electronic boxes, but it's so difficult. I mean, you have a readout in front of you telling you which gear it's in. This mechanic is hurt, obviously.
Yeah.
He was hurt. This is Michael Schumacher's fuel man, I think.
Michael got him with the right rear tire. Just as the camera panned, we saw him falling away, and he just wasn't able to step back quickly enough, Derek. So Michael caught his foot, perhaps his lower leg as well.
Well, one assumes he was told to go. Let's see who told him to go. Yeah, he was told to go. It wasn't Michael's fault. He was told to go by the man with the big disc on the end of the big stick. And, of course, the fuel man just didn't quite get it off. And as soon as the car moves, it actually pinches that fuel filler pipe onto the car. Lucky to get it off, and he didn't take the fuel gear down the whole pit road.
So Mika Hakkinen has taken over the lead. Actually, Derek, we're told that the fuel man is clear, and the fellow who was bumped and knocked over there, the right rear tire changer, who stands just to the left of the fueler.
Most odd. Most odd. He would look like he was possibly trying to help the guy.
I think so.
Maybe
with the fuel.
Yep.
And Barrichello is in. Ferrari's had to very quickly run back to the pit lane to service Barrichello's car.
Well, the guy's lifting his head up, but they must
Here it is again.
Here it is again.
Yes, he was.
Yes, it is.
He was trying to help pull the fuel.
He was trying to help fuel the fuel thing off. Yeah, look at him.
Yep.
Oh, what a sad, such hard teamwork from these guys.
He went down pretty hard, but fortunately, it looked like his leg did not get caught under the spinning wheel.
No,
which
it looked like his arm sort of hit the wheel and he rolled and then landed on his elbow or something. Who knows?
Well, hopefully he is just shaken up.
This is going to be a very tense race with these two, Hakkinen and Schumacher, on such identical lap times they've been doing. Hakkinen, of course, 24 seconds because he has not pit stopped yet. He'll be trying to do some very quick laps. Now he's got a clear bit of road. Michael, again, in his position, he'll be trying to get some very quick laps. But he's got a Minardi in front of him, I think. But he'll be trying to get some very quick laps in so that he remains in front of Hakkinen at the pit stop, because this will dictate, well, how the race runs until the next stop, fuel stop.
And Barrichello's stop was 9.3 seconds, and here's Mika. The race leader, Mika Hakkinen, and defending champion of this race, is in.
So they have a better stop than they did with David. Looks very good to me. Yeah, superb stop, 7.8. It really depends. Now let's see where Schumacher is on the pit, on the racetrack. As we come to cameras showing that shot, we'd rather see the pit lane and the racetrack at the same time. Hakkinen can go. Now where's the Ferrari? Here he comes. He's well ahead. Yeah, well, not well ahead, but ahead enough. Schumacher's got to contend with that Minardi, who will move out of the road fairly soon, one assumes. Mika will have to take a little gingerly for the first lap because the tyres will be up to a good temperature, but not the ultimate temperature.
I believe that's Genet directly in front of Schumacher.
He's better get out the road soon. Here he is.
There he goes.
Moving a bit now. That was a very generous move for him because that's a long corner. You can get yourself a lot of trouble if you get out wide there.
Frentzen for Jordan making his pit stop. And Jos Verstappen.
I have to say, both that Mercedes team and the Ferrari team did such an excellent job pit stopping those two guys. Here are the pit times. 7.3 for Schumacher, 7.8 for Hakkinen, Barrichello 9.3, and Coulthard 11.6, where we saw that disaster when Dave couldn't quite get the gear. The Minardi holding up Hakkinen just a bit there. But of course that doesn't really tell the whole story. It's how long does it take to do the whole thing. That's Verstappen changing the steering wheel on his car. Because it's the in and out time. It's the time it takes to come off the track, slow down to your restricted speed, go in the pits, then your 7.8 second stop, then get out.
It's a very long stop for Verstappen. Arrows trying to get their season turned around.
This is where these two drivers have got to start thinking, using their, well, they use their brains anyway. That's why they're where they are. They're carting off the Ferrari mechanic. Sadly, chief engineer. That wasn't the English guy. Oh dear, I hope it wasn't. Nigel Stepney, my old mechanic who was with me when I raced at Jags, believe it or not, in the touring car years ago. He was actually used to sweep the floor at Jaguars. Oh. And there he is, the head of Ferrari.
Apparently Verstappen's climbed out. They've been unable to solve the problem on his arrows.
Yeah, it was Nigel Stepney. We've had it confirmed. He obviously came along in the Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, Michael Schumacher era to Ferrari and has been a great support to that team. Talked to him quite frequently, and he says what a wonderful team it is to be with these days. Because Ferrari in the old days, boy, it was very difficult, very different picture. Now these two have really got to use their brains, as I was saying just before that incident, because they don't want to push it too hard, because I think they're going to destroy the tyres. At the same time, Mika Hakkinen can't afford to get too close behind Michael, because it's going to upset the balance of his car, the turbulent air, and therefore, of course, get the push problems and the scuffing of those front tyres.
So the first round of pit stops are complete, and we'll be back with more coverage from the Grand Prix of Spain on Fox Sports Net. After well, the battle is joined. Mika Hakkinen is right on the tail of Michael Schumacher. There they are for the lead in the Spanish Grand Prix. Jos Verstappen made that pit stop with the arrows. They replaced the steering wheel. Apparently he could still not select the gear, or whatever the problem was. He has retired, joining Jacques Villeneuve, Pedro de la Rosa, Pedro Diniz, and Jean Alesi as out of the race. Schumacher and Hakkinen are that close. Remember that Hakkinen won the pole and this race the last 2 years running. 6 of the last 8 years, the winner of the Spanish Grand Prix has been the world champion, including Hakkinen the last 2 years in a row.
I was just looking at the list here, Michael, and I wonder what had happened to Trulli, but in fact he's having clutch problems. That's why he's dropped way back down as far as 14th place. I wonder why it was, because he was running so well at the start.
14th just ahead of the Minardis. So is this the race where Mika Hakkinen gets his groove back? Could well be, but boy, Michael Schumacher's also driven a flawless race so far. In 1992, Nigel Mansell won this race and the championship for Williams. So did Alain Prost in 93. In 95, Michael Schumacher for Benetton won the Spanish Grand Prix and the title. Jacques Villeneuve in 97, Mika Hakkinen in these last 2 years. So 6 of the last 8 years, the winner in Spain has been the world champion. Things look pretty even up today. It was gear selector trouble for Jos Verstappen that took his arrows from the race. Pedro de la Rosa was involved in that crash. Well, he caused the crash with Jean Alesi, taking them both out on the first lap. So both the arrows have retired. Well, Derek, that's about as close as you can get without them being one on top of the other.
Yes, I admire the way Mika Hakkinen is sitting there that close to Michael. I know he can't afford to let him go, but the turbulent air must be just horrific there. We didn't mention the great Ayrton Senna, of course, who did win the Spanish Grand Prix, but it wasn't, I believe, on this circuit, because they've had this Grand Prix at 5 different circuits over the years.
Senna, the winner in 86 and 89 of the Spanish Grand Prix, but out here at Catalonia.
I think it was at Jarama, probably.
And The Spanish Grand Prix was announced this morning, Derek, will remain at the Circuit de Catalunya through 2006. The contract with Formula One was extended this morning.
And talking about that, poor old Silverstone's really getting a bashing for the conditions that they put everybody under and had to reimburse people £5 million worth, $8 million worth of their ticket money, which is pretty unfair. Well, not unfair, I think it's unfortunate, but at the same time they're getting hauled over the coals by the FIA for allowing the weather to happen. Now, I don't. Yes. It's the worst weather they've had in April in England for 200 years, and I don't think you can blame the British Racing Drivers Club for that, although I am, of course, a member of it, and I have a vested interest. But at the same time, I think the weather is an act of God, and we always used to have the races, we all know, in July. We can get rain in July, but it's certainly not sodden from the winter's rains as well, which is what happens when you have it in April. In July, you probably had a dryish summer.
Well, when they get hauled before the FIA in June, I hope to bring the weatherman with them. You cannot dictate the weather. And also, in that area of the countryside, you cannot simply pave over, you know, all those beautiful fields that are used for parking 1 weekend a year.
Well, you can't pave them any place in the world. If there had been any track in Europe that weekend, it would have been pretty darn wet.
Well, Formula One had been called to task for allowing the race to be held in April, and hopefully next year it will move to a drier spot on the calendar. I think, Derek, the one thing that we've seen this problem in the States at circuits, and particularly the Texas Motor Speedway, with torrential rains. And the one thing they did there, which apparently was not done at Silverstone, was lining up remote car parks and buses to try to relieve the road congestion, because the first car that spins its wheels getting onto a muddy field backs up every car behind it, and then that's repeated, and eventually a lot of folks end up 15 miles from the racetrack saying, you know, I'm going back to the hotel and watch it because I'm never going to get to the track. So a contingency plan, I'm sure, will be put in place before next year. And perhaps, I hope that's the focus of the discussion with the FIA. Not who controls the weather, but what do we do just in case?
Well, there aren't enough buses, coaches in the world to contend with 200,000 people coming to the racetrack. And the little lanes around Silverstone are very small. Just look at this. They're coming in behind Ralph there, very, very gingerly. That's David Coulthard.
Now remember, Coulthard had trouble selecting the right gear to get out of the pits, and that's what finds him now behind Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello after the first pit stop.
Yeah, as we know on this track, we've seen it. You can stay behind somebody, but getting by, boy, that is another problem. It's awful when you try to give overtaking areas before the race, but there really aren't any overtaking areas at this particular place.
A very technical and physically demanding circuit, but one with very few overtaking opportunities.
Well, it was Mika Häkkinen that was a little bit concerned about the physical side of this circuit before the race, and he's putting up one of the greatest races I've seen him do in a long time, to be that close to Schumacher in these conditions when, as I said, the turbulence behind him and the instability of his car must be very great compared to Michael's, because he's getting that turbulent air, which makes that, like 30% of the downforce on that front wing dissipates when you're behind another car. So he can't be easy for him in these long, fast corners. This one perhaps isn't that fast, but there are many examples here of these fast corners.
And it's a question that's been raised in virtually every form of motorsport in the world, is now that the cars have become so aerodynamically efficient, how do you bring back passing when the cars rely so much on that aerodynamic downforce, as much or more so than they rely on the mechanical grip of the tires through the corners? And I think really, Derek, only CART has successfully addressed this problem with their Hanford device on the rear wing and other aerodynamic, let's say, disenhancements to get the cars where they can pull up and draft and pass. The IRL cars, also there's a lot of passing in that circuit, but even in the full-bodied cars, NASCAR is looking at changes. The British Touring Car Championship has outlawed flat bottoms and penalized a couple of teams for cleaning up the under trays of the cars to make them more aerodynamic, because what folks really want is to see cars where a driver in a situation like Mika Häkkinen is in right now, or here's Barrichello in the Ferrari behind Ralf Schumacher, for the driver to be able to exploit an advantage and have the opportunity to pull out and pass, rather than be limited by the dirty air of the car in front of him.
I believe so. Let's just ride now with Barrichello. Keksa. Thanks, Sabadell. And onto the pit straight. A little bit of lifting off as he goes through there. Up to 195 miles an hour.
Derek, you got to wonder if perhaps some engine restrictions are in Formula One's future. Remember, these cars here are a full second faster in qualifying than they were 1 year ago, without any change in the specification of these cars as development increases. Well, Michael Schumacher leads Mika Hakkinen by the thinnest of margins. Ralf Schumacher, Barrichello, Coulthard, and Jenson Button are the drivers in the points after 36 laps in the Spanish Grand Prix. Protects the thinnest of leads over defending race champion Mika Hakkinen. There's Johnny Herbert, who's had a, well, pretty awful day. He's 13th, and his teammate Eddie Irvine is but 12th.
Yes, I'm just wondering what the heck is happening to these Jags. They seem to be more miserable every time they go out. And we don't seem to hear really what it is that they're having as problem, because we understood the engine was, well, Eddie said the engine was as strong as anything out there.
Oh. While we were away, Alexander Wirtz made his second pit stop of the afternoon. His first came at lap 18. He was one of the first to pit in the first sequence of stops. And here is Johnny Herbert in. He was first in at lap 20. So it's his second stop. And it'll leave him some 26 laps to run.
They do have a problem getting that fuel filler cap off, that fuel pipe off. Is that David?
It is. So
Good stop.
Yeah, he ran very...
Identical. But no, well, his first stop, of course, was 11 seconds, but it was a very good stop by him, by his team.
Well, he ran a very short segment there, Derek, only 15 laps, hoping that a quick pit stop here would get him out ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello when they cycle through.
Exactly, that is the thought.
And there is activity at Williams. That will probably be for Jenson Button, who first came in on lap 19. What a scrap for the lead here.
Remember that Schumacher's on the medium compound tire, and Mika Hakkinen's on the softer tire. It does seem like the softer tire does have tremendous grip.
Now Ferrari is setting up. On the first round, Michael Schumacher came in 1 lap before Barrichello, but this may be for Rubens.
Now, who is it for? I would hate to say who I'd bring in first. But I would have thought that Schumacher needs to stay out as long as he can. Oh, there we go.
Rubens and Ralf Schumacher are in.
Now, let's see if Ferrari can get a great pit stop. Let's see if Williams can do a great pit stop. Slow. What happened there? No.
Oh, he didn't beat Ralf out of the pit lane.
Not with a 9.8. You're not going to do that. Ralf had an 8.6, which is a second quicker.
Well, Ralf had run 17 laps on that stint.
Oh, dear. Did you see that? Yes. Right in by that McLaren.
Yep, Barrichello had only gone 15 laps.
Looks like David Coulthard's in front. So that really quick stop that they did really worked for McLaren.
And it looks as if they're not going to leave Hakkinen and Schumacher out there much longer. There's activity in both pits.
Now that just shows you what pit strategy can work as Schumacher comes in. Because David Coulthard, they look like Hakkinen coming in behind him. This is the decision, really, sadly, of what happens at the end of the race. Take too long for this fuel, too long. That's it. He just lost the race. Ferrari just lost the race. The fuel filler man had not got the fuel tap on. Look at that. That's it. End of the race for Schumacher as far as winning is concerned, unless Hakkinen has a major problem. They have the wheels on, and the guy hasn't even got the fuel filler pipe on. We don't know if it's the same refueling man, because the refueling man supposedly wasn't injured. It was Nigel Stepney, who is the chief mechanic on the team. But Nigel used to do all the refueling on the car. This weekend he certainly wasn't, and he was helping to take the pipe off, and he got hurt. So Hakkinen is in first position, and I don't think we're going to see much happening with Schumacher catching him up. Or certainly overtaking him.
I hope there's Jenson Button. I hope the Spanish director gives us a replay of Schumacher's stop. Be interesting to see.
Well, I looked, I couldn't believe it. The guy was actually putting the refueling pipe on when they were lowering the car on the ground.
I wonder, Derek, if the dry brake system that ensures a seal between the hose and the car might have been damaged as they were trying to yank it off the first time Schumacher stopped.
Well, it certainly makes you wonder. There's a strong possibility that would be the case. I have to agree with you. Now, the thing is Schumacher far enough ahead in second place, ahead of Coulthard. Coulthard was some 29 seconds behind, so possibly he made it out ahead of him.
Well, there are the pit stop times, first to second, and you see the disastrous pit stop for Michael and the big improvement for David Coulthard on that second stop. Remember, Coulthard's first stop was slower because he had trouble selecting first gear and getting out of the pits.
What a brilliant stop by McLaren, though. 6.5 seconds on Mika Hakkinen. That is outstanding. 10 seconds between Hakkinen and Schumacher. I think that's unfortunately going to tow up the end of the race.
So Hakkinen stopping at 23 laps to go. And now here it is. Once again, you see they can't get it seated.
No, the car's lowered and they're still trying to get it on there. He mustn't let Michael go yet. He must be revving. He must be wired up for sound, Schumacher. He's wondering what is happening. He's looking in his mirror to look behind him now to see what they're doing. And it comes off. Off he goes.
So instead of getting the fuel probe, problems getting the fuel probe out, problems getting it in for Michael Schumacher, and it appears to have cost him this race. If Mika Hakkinen is able to continue to the finish without problems, that extra 10 seconds in the pits is the difference between Hakkinen and Schumacher right now.
Yeah, but it was tremendous work by McLaren, you have to say.
Yes.
On both their cars. They put them out ahead of the group. They put DC out ahead of his group, and they put Mika out ahead of his group. Excellent bit of work.
DC with just about 3 seconds on Ralf Schumacher now. And a second from Ralph de Barrichello. Let's have a look at both of Michael Schumacher's pit stops. And we'll show you at the end of the first one. Watch the fueler on the left side.
Now, Nigel Stepney, the crew chief of that car, is actually behind, and he's trying to help pull it off. See him helping? And he's the one that falls over and drops really sort of with his chest onto the rear wheel. This is the second one.
Now, Derek, Michael is pulling away before that fuel probe is fully released. So I'm surmising that something bent, either probably on the car, because they would have had time to look at and inspect the probe. And Michael Schumacher, there you see Mika Hakkinen going by. And it took a long time to get that probe affixed to Schumacher's car, and that is the 10-second delay.
Well, I've never seen Ferrari. We haven't seen Ferrari in disarray for a long time, but they are today. First time for a long time we've had disarray in their pit stops. But it happens. We're all human. Everybody's human, and it happens. But Heidfeld can't get a gear by the look of it. Engine's running well. Doesn't seem to get any revs either. Strange, isn't it?
There he is going off. That's the start of his problems. Makes it back around to the pits, but trouble for Prost today as Alesi was knocked out of the race on lap 1 by De La Rosa.
Problem with Prost every day.
Sadly.
Not having a good time at all this year.
Who was tipped to perhaps be, was it Peugeot, was perhaps be buying that team?
Well, they're talking about selling all their engines to a private owner, Peugeot are, for next year.
Right.
But we don't know who that private owner is.
No.
And it's not necessarily, they said it's not totally associated with Formula One, but they haven't said who.
Okay. Well, rumors of a buyer for Prost, perhaps. Looking for the gap from Michael Schumacher back to David Coulthard. There it is, 3.3 seconds.
And David Coulthard's catching was second in the last lap.
So it's coming undone for Ferrari. They cannot lose the lead in either the driver or constructors championship today, but their great start to the season is kind of unraveling here in Spain. Mika Hakkinen, the defending race winner and world champion, leads for West McLaren Mercedes. You're watching Formula One on Fox Sports Net. As Jim Rome tells it like it is on the Nightline of sports talk shows weeknights at 6:30 and 11:30 on Fox Sports Net. The last word. Here we go. Michael Schumacher's been caught up by David Coulthard, and
David was having a go. I'm sorry
Yes,
about that.
that's
He was
all right.
getting So I thought this is really a big overtaking maneuver going on here. David really tried, and he'll have another go yet.
boy, it very nearly was. Traffic ahead.
David's been catching him up at a second a lap since the pit stop. And there he is. Nobody else is staying with him. I mean, Rubens is not there, nor is Ralph, who, of course, David was behind for the first two-thirds of the race.
Boy, Coulthard right to the edge of the rumble strip, using up every bit of asphalt and then some. Having a little peak there, but
Well, we saw, of course, David do an outstanding maneuver overtaking on Rubens Barrichello at the British Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. Although Rubens did have some problems at that point with the hydraulic system on his car, and it came out of the previous corner somewhat slower, but it's still a brilliant bit of overtaking on the outside by David at Stowe Corner. And he could do a similar thing on Michael, but I don't think he might find it quite as easy. Now, this is where David, on this mile-long straight, made such a brilliant move last time.
didn't appear to get off that last corner as well this time, or as close to Michael. Here he
Oh,
goes.
look, going to the
And
outside,
Michael,
he's got him.
yes,
He's
Michael
got him.
pulled way over offline.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do nothing about it. What a fine bit of overtaking there. I have to say it was so similar to the one that happened at Stowe Corner that I talked about with Rubens the last race. Because you don't normally overtake somebody around the outside, but here we
look,
go again. Let's watch it.
Did Michael drive way offline?
Well, it's a weird way to do it. He certainly
There.
did. But I don't know what he thought he was going to find over there. I don't know if he thought he was going to get better grip, but he certainly did nothing to really hold David up. And then David gets a bit out of shape going through the first part of Elf.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, Derek, if at the end of the straightaway he pulled over and let David through.
Well, I think he sort of did. He wasn't
Yep.
making it that easy, but at the end of it, he did.
Yep.
But he could have so easily let it go down the inside if he had wanted to. Button in a very good sixth place. Another fine race by young Jensen. Let's ride with Rubens. Ralf Schumacher in front, still looking at wheels.
Now this group is 6 seconds behind Michael Schumacher.
Nearly every corner, Ralph looks up a left or a right front wheel. He's been doing it the whole race. I'm surprised he's getting away with it. Oh, he's doing it again. But of course then he loses out turning in. He can't quite get the turn in he required, but Rubens can do nothing about it. That Williams, look at the engine of that, the power of that
Yes.
BMW engine. Well, that BMW engine, it has shrunk. Locking it all up again. And then see he loses out as he turns in.
But look at him rocket off the corner.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's got any front tires left at all.
Derek, at Silverstone with Barrichello qualifying on pole, and incidentally, the first Ferrari teammate to Michael Schumacher to qualify on pole in a race in which Michael ran. We thought he might penalty on Mazzacani, 10 seconds for blocking, we're told. We thought the Rubens might break his duck, a popular British expression, and through email, we've gotten you pointed out correctly, it was a cricket term, but I didn't catch it because here in the U.S. we call a string of zeros on the scoreboard goose eggs, and in England they're duck eggs. So if you break your duck, you break the string of duck eggs and score and get a number up on the board. So hoping for Rubens to break his duck, it's breaking a duck.
The question is, though, is why? The question is why would it be a zero, be a duck? And the reason is because it's a similar shape when it's written down. The chicken egg or a duck egg or a goose egg is oval, rather like an O. Hence they went for zero and a duck egg. Wasn't that boring, really? What an unnecessary bit of trivia.
Well, sure filled up a lot of bandwidth on our email.
Look at them. They're all over the back of Michael. You see that? Look,
yeah.
Schumacher's slowing right down. Look. Oh, brother. Okay, that's a bit tough on your brother, Michael.
Oh, he makes it. And here comes Rubens right up his tailpipe.
Michael's probably got the gear.
Whoa!
Rubens, what a pass!
What a move!
Thanks, brother. You'll say you're a real brother for that one.
And Barrichello just did a shoey double.
Shoey's going in the pits.
Well, he let DC through something obviously wrong with Michael's car if he wasn't going to fight the McLaren. And now, let's see.
Is it something gear-wise?
Well, they're going to put tires on it, and perhaps the choice of tire for Michael Schumacher
Is really wrong.
has been his undoing. Perhaps. Remember, he is on the mediums. The arrows started on the medium. Everyone else is on the soft compound.
Well, it certainly seems it wasn't the best move, but I'm sure they thought about it long and hard before they made that decision.
We'll give Rubens the move of the season. It may not break his duck, but it certainly should get him a seat at the table.
It puts him on the podium, doesn't it?
And if things stay as they are, both Williams will be in the points for the third time in 5 races. Last year, Williams didn't score both cars in the points the whole season. Wow, what a turnaround. What an inspired bit of driving by Rubens. Let's see it from Michael's view, or from Rubens' view, rather.
Michael just making it very, very tight there for his brother Ralph. Comes the next corner, Michael just pushes him out wide. Michael doesn't want to lose more than he has to. Whoa, see you, boy, I've got... I mean, it would have been terrible if Michael had pulled back another shot. Oh, dear. Because Ralph, as you've seen, has had this locking up front wheels, so therefore he didn't turn in quite as tight as he wanted to.
Well, remember last week in Peter's interview with the two Schumacher brothers, they said, we love to run each other hard. Boy, they just about interlocked wheels there.
Three abreast.
Close.
Don't see too much of that these days, not at that level.
They were very close to interlocking wheels, the Schumacher brothers.
They're smiling there at McLaren's, and well, they should be. They just run off and hidden now.
And Michael comes back on track in 5th place. So once Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher made it past, and he had plenty of a gap on Jenson Button to make that stop for tires and come back out. So quickly Ferrari brought him in. Coulthard lacks 22 seconds to the race leader and defending champion Hakkinen. 8.6 back to Rubens Barrichello, who has Ralf Schumacher right with him.
He's easing away bit by bit from him, though, Mike.
1.8 seconds is the difference, and then Michael should be in 5th with about 20 seconds in the pit lane, and there's the differential. Now that will leave him still 11 seconds up on Jenson Button, who's in the final point position, followed by Frentzen, Mika Salo in 8th, Ricardo Zonta, and Fisichella. Here's another look at it.
There wasn't too much room there, was there? Their wheels are actually, well, would have been totally interlocked if they didn't have that body along the side of the car, the formable structure.
Well, in mid-corner, the two brothers, not wishing to run into one another, took off quite a bit of speed and momentum, and Barrichello capitalized, timed it beautifully, and jumped to 3rd place. So there are the standings with 13 laps to go. Mika Hakkinen, your race leader. You're watching Formula One on Fox Sports Net. Windsor, here's your leader, Mika Hakkinen. Brilliant pit strategy by McLaren and an inspired drive of put him 22 seconds ahead of his teammate. And talk about inspired drives, David Coulthard coming off a plane crash Tuesday in which it is miraculous that he was able to walk away along with his fiancée and trainer from a Learjet crash in France that claimed the lives of both pilots. Coulthard walked away and came here to Spain ready to race, and Derek, he's just turned in a tremendous performance.
Yes, it has. We're led to believe he's got these bruised ribs, and he is certainly now, he's got free of that Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello group. He's turned in some very, very quick laps and doing a superb job. We saw him overtake Michael Schumacher, but it's pretty obvious Michael had a problem because 2 laps later he went in the pits. But nonetheless, David is doing a sterling job out there when you consider all the conditions. And 10 laps to go, and nothing much he'll do about catching Mika Hakkinen, but this will in fact be Mika Hakkinen. He won in 1998, he won in 2000, he'll win in 2001. Quite an amazing result for Mika Hakkinen. 3-time winners also Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell and Jackie Stewart.
Well, Mika Hakkinen, again, what a tremendous performance for Hakkinen, and this will certainly move him up in the World Championship. You see that Michael Schumacher is on position to salvage 2 points from the day. And Ferrari, Rubens Barrichello in third to add to that total of 43. And they will lead the Constructors' Championship heading for the Nürburgring.
Rubens overtaking one of the Jags, is going very slowly there.
Yeah, gave him a nice little wave, and you saw on the onboard camera maybe a little bit of fluid from the Jag ahead.
Well, it certainly was going slowly, wasn't it?
Like he stopped.
Yeah. Back up through this turn at 140. The next one onto the straight. 160. $195 right at the end there before he breaks. Coulthard doing some quick laps there.
So Mika Hakkinen's led 20 of the 56 laps. We've had 3 lead changes due to the timing of pit stops. 17 of the 22 starters remain on track. Gone are Jean Alesi, Pedro Diniz, Pedro de la Rosa, Jos Verstappen, and Jacques Villeneuve. Nick Heidfeld is in for what I believe is his 3rd stop.
He'll be pleased to get to the end of this race. He hasn't seen too many checkered flags.
Barrichello did not have a great start. He got pipped at the start by Ralf Schumacher and also lost a spot to David Coulthard, but as the fortunes of the race unfolded, here he sits in 3rd, right where he started the day, but now behind the 2 McLarens rather than his teammate and Mika Hakkinen. He's behind Hakkinen and Coulthard.
8 laps to go, and he's behind one of the Jags.
Yeah, this will be Eddie Irvine. He overlapped Johnny Herbert earlier. Irvine in 12th place. Everyone from 9th on back is a lap down. That's Zonta, Fisichella, Wirtz, Irvine, Herbert, Jarno Trulli, Marc Genet, and then Mazzacani 2 laps down, and Heidfeld.
Tell you what, when you're in one of these lesser teams, it's such an achievement to finish a Grand Prix. We all get excited about the guys at the front, but I tell you, they are so elated just to finish a Grand Prix when they've had some pretty poor races leading up to it. So you see Rubens right behind Irvine.
Must be a tough picture for Eddie Irvine to look in his mirror and see the car he drove last year coming up to lap him.
Here's an interesting comment Ross Brawn said to Barrichello the other day. You've done more for Ferrari in 1 year than Irvine did in the last 4. But I don't quite know what he meant by that.
No.
But I guess he's putting a lot of input into the team. And of course we know that Eddie is one of those people that does start to enjoy life. With all the best things in life can offer, he's got them. Don't blame him either.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I didn't say there was.
No.
I try, but I never earn the money.
Right. Barrichello now 12.5 back. Make that 13.5 back from Coulthard. So losing touch with the two McLarens just a bit. Now Ralf Schumacher, last time by, was only 4.2 seconds behind Rubens. And that gap had been increasing fractionally each lap. And Hakkinen's lead, pretty stable. It was 22 seconds about 3 laps ago, but that's pretty much stable given race traffic. 13 back to Barrichello in third. And now it's only 3.7 back to Ralf Schumacher. So he is closing the gap on Barrichello.
Yeah, incredible drive. I mean, Ralph drove so well last year in that awful Williams car that they ran last year. And here he is doing an outstanding job. I mean, he really is sort of doing what Jacques Villeneuve's been doing this season. Doing an outstanding job with a car. We know it's good, but still doing a stirring job right up at the front. Jacques Villeneuve's been doing the same. And of course has had 3 failures. He had a 4th and a 5th, and now he's had 3 non-finishes. But he's been very strong, has Jacques, in the other 2. Well, in fact, in all the races until such time as things let him down.
One of the best battles on the racetrack was Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Mika Salo for 7th place. They were just a couple of car lengths apart, but now Salo has been overlapped by Mika Hakkinen, and that's dropped him a bit back from Frentzen. So 7 cars remain on the lead lap. These 6 and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. We'll be back to Catalunya in a moment. At Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. Johnny Herbert has just made his 3rd stop of the day. And, not a particularly great result for Jaguar. The leaping cat may become the sleeping cat here in Formula One. It's been a very tough day for both Eddie Irvine and Johnny Herbert, running 12th and 14th. And Herbert stopping at lap 20, lap 39, and at lap 61, Derek, just 4 laps from the finish. Tough day.
Very tough for Jags. I wouldn't be at all impressed with the result if I was any part of that empire at the moment. But then it is early days for them, although I still feel that they took over the Ford team of last year with Jackie Stewart, and they were running reasonably quite well. So I don't see what's happened to them in the time since then.
You could have made a claim for Jaguar being, you know, the 4th best team in the paddock behind McLaren, Ferrari, and Jordan last year, or perhaps 4th equal. But boy, today,
well,
this year, no.
They've got pretty well as big a budget as anybody out there, or big as a bigger sort of. They've just been given the go-ahead for a $49 million wind tunnel to go up in England.
Wow.
I mean, that is major budgetary stuff. I know it lasts a long time, but they mean business. I'm sure they will, but at the moment they're not looking that presentable. Minardi in again.
Yep, this is Genet. Since it's his home Grand Prix, we're seeing a lot of him today, and this is also his 3rd stop, and it comes with just 3 laps to go.
One of the quickest stops he's ever made, I know.
Well, how much fuel do you need for 3 laps? 6 seconds.
Makes you wonder whether they could have put a bit more in last time.
Well, his first stop was at lap 18. He was one of the 3 that stopped earliest. Heidfeld, Wirtz, and Genet.
And what a splendid bit of driving by Mika Hakkinen. Absolutely faultless, superb piece of driving. Pressurized Michael all the time. Probably knew if he pressurized him enough, his tires would go away. If you recollect the very first lap of the race, we had that shot you saw of Hakkinen, and then we saw Schumacher actually with the tail out, getting it sideways. And I thought, boy, you're getting the tail out at this time of the race. What's going to happen later on when the tires do get used up? But Hakkinen has driven an inspired race, and he needed it because, as we said at the beginning of the show, what's he been doing all year?
Well, he'll come out of this with 10 points, but he'll still trail Michael Schumacher badly And McLaren getting off to their worst start in many a season in both the Constructors and the Drivers' Championships.
It is a circuit that we expect the McLaren to go so well on because it's got virtually every type of corner you could wish for. It's got the very high-speed corners, it's got bumpy entrances to corners, it's got 2 slow-speed corners, and it is the best all-round circuit there is probably in the world. And the McLaren always goes well here because it is such a good compromised car.
Derek, the final point in this race is now in jeopardy. Jenson Button is in 6th place, but they're reporting engine problems.
There he is.
Ooh, yes.
That's more than just a little engine problem. That is very sad, having got so close. Let's hope Ralph can keep running at this stage, but Jenson would have been in with a point there. He's pulling off. That is it for Jenson Button, but another fine outing by that young man so early in his career.
Tremendous drive. And it elevates Frentzen to 6th place.
Eddie Jordan didn't think he'd get a point today.
Nope. Stay with us after the checkered flag trophy presentation, the champagne spray, and we'll hear from the podium finishers in the unilateral press conference. And the finish flags fly here in Spain for Mika Hakkinen.
There's some breeze up there on that hill.
Quite. So Frentzen moves up to 6th with the retirement of Jenson Button. Mika Salo to 7th, Ricardo Zonta to 8th, Fisichella to 9th, Wirtz to 10th. Another day of slogging around for the Benettons. Eddie Irvine, a lackluster 11th. Jarno Trulli is 12th. And Johnny Herbert will move to 13th. Mark Genet and Mazzacani and Heidfeld are the others still running. Well, the points will get ever closer as we look forward to the Nürburgring in 2 weeks. And this will be the first Hakkinen-Coulthard 1-2 finish with Mika winning and David second since Hungary last August. And for the 3rd straight year, Mika Hakkinen to take checkered flag in Spain with DC finishing in 2nd. Last driver to win 3 straight Spanish Grand Prix, Jackie Stewart, 1969 through 71.
You have to admit that is very, very impressive for Mika Hakkinen as a driver, and of course the McLaren Mercedes. When we remember just the torrid time McLaren were having with that Mercedes engine in the first season or two, trying to get it to work, and we all thought, what's happening to Ron Dennis? Much the same as we've been saying the last 2 years. What's happened to Frank Williams? But look at them all coming back. That German technology really, really coming to fore, albeit, let's say, the McLaren engines are built by Mary Illian at Ilmore in Britain.
Well, Mika Hakkinen is going to join Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, and Jackie Stewart as a 3-time winner of the Spanish Grand Prix. Hakkinen scores his first of the season. David Coulthard is some 17 seconds back. Here's Coulthard to finish 2nd. 14 seconds back of Coulthard is Rubens Barrichello, who has 7 seconds on Ralf Schumacher, who has 10 on his older brother. So here's Rubens for 3rd.
Well, that was a great salvage job by Rubens, particularly that overtaking maneuver, and Ferrari had pretty poor pit stop work there, but there's Erhia, Mika Hakkinen's wife. But it was outstanding bit of work by the McLaren crew in their pit stops, and of course by the 2 drivers. Excellent work.
Ralf Schumacher will come home 4th. Michael Schumacher in 5th.
He'll be very disappointed. He'll be doing a lot of analyzing when they get back.
Yes. And remember, Michael ran this race on the medium compound tires, while all of his contenders were on the soft compound. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the final point, and he is the last car to finish on the lead lap. The finish flags are in the wind, and we'll be back for the celebrating after this. Formula One on Fox Sports Net is brought to you by Toyota, on the edge every day. Welcome back to the Circuit de Catalunya, where it looks like the Easter Bunny has made a somewhat tardy appearance, but has the right flag in hand to salute Mika Häkkinen's victory in the Spanish Grand Prix, his third consecutive triumph in this race. He beats his McLaren Mercedes teammate David Coulthard to the finish line by 16 seconds. Rubens Barrichello third for Ferrari, Ralf Schumacher fourth for Williams BMW, Michael Schumacher fifth, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen for Jordan, Mugen Honda sixth. Mika Salo, Ricardo Zonta, Giancarlo Fisichella, Alexander Wirtz, Eddie Irvine Jarno Trulli, all one lap down, as was Johnny Herbert. 2 laps back, Marc Gené and Gaston Mazzacani as both Minardis finish. Then Nick Heidfeld and Jenson Button classed as finishers as well. Schumacher's lead in the driver points cut to 14 over Häkkinen now, then Coulthard, Barrichello, Schumacher Jr., and Fisichella. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Villeneuve, Trulli, Button, Zonta, and Salo also in the points. Ferrari's lead cut to 7 as McLaren Mercedes scores maximum points in Spain. Then Williams, Jordan, Benetton, and BAR Sauber with 1 point.
Here they come, a very elated Rubens Barrichello, and naturally Mika Häkkinen is rather subdued. David Coulthard, of course, as one would expect after such an awful week where his fiancée Heidi Belinsky has supported him so strongly. After there she is standing right there, having had rather a torrid week, one has to admit.
That's a very exuberant looking Mika Häkkinen. Many of his victory ceremonies are quite subdued looking, but he really looks excited as he gets the hardware from the president of Catalunya.
The Honourable Jordi Pujol. Difficult name, that one. Wonderful trophy. Looks rather like a Formula 1 steering wheel to me, made out of beautiful silver.
And with the Marlboro insignia, as they are the race sponsor.
The winning Constructors' Trophy goes to Norbert Hubbard, who is in fact the director motorsport for Mercedes-Benz.
Presented by Juan Antonio Samaranch, the president of the International Olympic Committee.
Second place driver is presented by Mr. Jose Piqué, the Spanish Minister for Foreign Affairs, to David Coulthard, of course.
And Carlos Garcia, the president of the Spanish Federation, presents Rubens Barrichello with his hardware. And now, a little champagne.
Second time up there for Rubens this year. For Mika, what a victory. He needed that victory, and he did such a splendid job. I thought Mercedes-Benz, the team of the McLaren team, did a wonderful, wonderful time. Absolutely brilliant pit stops for them.
So Mika Hakkinen, three-peats in the Spanish Grand Prix. He's won it 3 years in a row. First driver to do that since Jackie Stewart, 1969 to 71. And we'll hear from an exuberant winner and the two runners-up when we return to Barcelona. You're watching Formula One on Fox Sports Net.
Finishes for the 2000 Spanish Grand Prix: Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello. Mika, many congratulations. This is your third victory in a row here. You must feel very pleased.
Yes. I don't know how I could explain it, how pleased I am. I'm just over the moon, or how you say it.
You seemed quicker than Michael throughout the race. Were you just waiting for the pit stops?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And moving on to David. Well done, Mika.
Oh, that's it. You don't ask anything else.
I'll come back to you in a moment. David, you seem to be, you're proving an expert at overtaking Michael Schumacher. Did you have any indication at the time that he was in trouble?
Well, clearly, how quickly I caught him, I knew that wasn't his normal pace, so I knew he had a problem. And it was just a question of trying to use momentum as you catch him to get by, because even if someone's running 2 seconds a lap slower, it can still be quite difficult to overtake. And it was quite close on his the first manoeuvre he made, pulling to the right. I was very surprised at how late he made the decision, and we came very close to touching. And then the second attempt, and I obviously went for the outside and felt confident I could outbrake him. So despite me having made a mistake in the first pit stop, which is why I dropped behind Ralph and Rubens, the guys did a good job to call me in a little bit earlier to get me track position after the stop.
In view of the events of the past week, has it been a good thing for you to get into a race car and just get down to business? I understand you have a cracked rib.
Absolutely. Get in the car, drive, do my job, and you know, this is the best thing that could happen for the team and myself to come away from here with maximum points.
Well done, David. Moving on to Mika, Rubens. Rubens, you benefited from Michael and Ralph scrapping. Do you feel that you owe this podium to Michael?
Well, in a way, yes. I must admit that you know, the race wasn't really good up to that point, because you know, you run behind people, and even if they are 2 seconds slower, you just there's no way to overtake. So basically, I had my race was that. You know, I was looking forward when I'm on the pit overtook David, and I was looking for that again with Ralph. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the team had a problem with Nigel, and who was putting the fuel in, and then my pit stop was quite slow. So then I lose for both, and you know, my only chance was when I saw we were approaching Michael, and I was lucky to drive by both.
Michael ran over Nigel Stepney in his first stop. Do you know how Nigel is?
Well, they just told me that he has a problem with his leg, but I hope it's not too bad.
Thank you, Rubens. Back to Mika. You're now 14 points behind Michael in the World Championship. As we go to the Nürburgring, do you consider the World Championships to still be wide open?
Before I answer that question, I want to say one thing. I would say I think the boys did a fantastic job today. You know, for the pit stop, what we did today, it was just amazing. I mean, like you saw when we were coming together with the Michael to the pit stop, and they just did a brilliant job. You know, changed the tires just like they should, and they did fabulous way. I'm just very pleased, and I want to just say thank you for them. Great teamwork. And answer your question, it's a long way to go until the end of the season, and anything can happen. Today was a good example. Looking forward to next Grand Prix and next test. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm happy. You know, we have learned a lot this Grand Prix this weekend, a lot about this car, and believe we can make it much quicker in the rest of the season.
Many congratulations, Mika. And now a word from you and Rubens in your own languages, please.
So Mika Hakkinen is over the moon about his first race of the season. We'll be back to wrap things up here at the Circuit de Catalunya in a moment. To Catalunya. We've been working with our Fox Sports Net affiliates to try to give you a consistent airtime for these races. That means in 2 weeks' time you'll see the Grand Prix of Europe at 10 a.m. your local time, except when local programming intervenes, which means earlier in Chicago and Wisconsin and later in Florida. Another look at the start.
We can see Schumacher has one of these starts where he's left going across the road and cutting everybody off, which I don't think is very popular with the drivers. He had a hard time the other day at a meeting about this. However, he's still in front. But look the way Ralf Schumacher comes up between Barrichello and David Coulthard. Somehow they all managed to get through the corner. I think it looks like it was Heinz Harald out very sideways coming through those S's.
Well, one of the defining moments of this race, Michael Schumacher on his first pit stop, trouble getting the fueling probe off the car. That may have damaged it or the car's receptacle, and they had problem getting it in on this second stop. As Mika Hakkinen rolls away and into the lead for the final time, they finally get Shui refueled.
Yeah, there was a very long stop for Michael Schumacher, unfortunately.
And then the Schumacher brothers, while battling each other for position, provide a great opportunity for Rubens.
Just look at the way he's getting himself set up. He lost a bit of momentum there, strangely enough, but I didn't expect him to come through quite as quick. And here are the two brothers going for it. They said there's no holds barred. Then Rubens really capitalizes on it.
So Mika Hakkinen drives a perfect race to earn his first victory of the season. For Derek Bell and Peter Windsor, I'm Mike Joy. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time at the Nürburgring on Fox Sports Net.